All right, today we're going to talk about the focus and the directrix of a parabola. All right, let's get some definitions out of the way. The focus is in the interior of a parabola and lies on the axis of symmetry. So here you can see this parabola opens up, and here is the focus on the inside of the parabola. The directrix is the perpendicular to the axis of symmetry. So this line here is my axis of symmetry, and the directrix is perpendicular to that. The focus and the directrix are equidistant from the vertex, and we will call that distance P. So here's your vertex, here's the focus, and here's your vertex, and here's the directrix, and these two distances are going to be the same. So let's talk about the standard equation of a parabola with a vertex, first of all, at 0, 0. So it would be y equals 1 over 4p times x squared. And remember that p is the distance from the vertex to the focus and from the vertex to the directrix. So the focus will be at 0p. That's going to be a y value. Your p will be a y value. And the directrix is y equals negative p, because remember, if this opens up, then the directrix has to be below the parabola. If you compare that to the parent function of a parabola, y equals ax squared, you can see that the a value has to equal 1 over 4p. And we can use that in order to figure out what p is. So you have the a here and the 1 over 4p here. So you can see that those would have to be equivalent. So let's take a look at an example. Identify the focus, directrix, and the axis of symmetry for a function y equals negative 1/12 x squared. We're going to use the a value to solve for p, because once I know p, I can figure out the focus and the directrix. So my a value is 1 over 4p. My a value in this case is negative 1/12. So you can see here that p would have to equal negative 3 for these to be equivalent statements. Now that I know that p is negative 3, I know the vertex is at 0, 0 because of the original function. And if it's at 0, 0 and it opens up, I know that the focus has to be, it opens down. The focus has to be 3 units down from the vertex. So I know the focus has to be at 0, negative 3. The directrix has to be 3 units above the vertex. Therefore, the directrix is at y equals positive 3. And the axis of symmetry is at x equals 0. Right. Write an equation of the parabola with a focus at 0, 7 and the directrix at y equals negative 7. Well, if you kind of picture in your head what this looks like, if you imagine an xy axis, you have a point at 0, 7 and then a line at y equals negative 7. You can tell then that the vertex has to be at 0, 0 because it has to be directly in between those two y values. So if I take 7 plus negative 7 and average them, I'm going to end up at 0. So therefore, p has to equal 7. If I know p equals 7, then I know a has to equal 1 over 4 times 7, or I know my a value has to be 1 over 28. Well, if my vertex is at 0, 0, and I have an a value of 1 over 28, then this has to be the equation, y equals 1 over 28 x squared. But what about if the vertex is not at 0, 0? Then the equation would look like this. The a value is still 1 over 4p, but now it'll be x minus h squared plus k. The focus now is at h. That's going to be whatever your x value of your vertex is, but now it'll be your y value k plus p, and the directrix will be y equals k minus p. So let's take a look at an example. Identify the focus, directrix, and the axis of symmetry for the function y equals negative 1/4 x plus 2 squared plus 1. We're going to use the a value in order to solve for p, because once again, once we know p, we know the focus and the directrix. So in this case, my a value is negative 1/4, so we can see very clearly here that p has to equal negative 1. Well, the focus is at h comma k plus p. Well, my h value is negative 2 because that's the x value of the vertex, and k is going to be 1 plus my p-value, which is -1. So I know my focus has to be at -2, 0. My directrix is at y equals k minus p. So it'll be at k, which is 1, minus a -1, or my directrix will be at y equals 2. And if you take a look at the graph and think about this, this makes sense. Here's the equation. We found out that p equals -1. The vertex is at -2, 1. We know that just by looking at the equation, -2, 1. So right there is my vertex. The focus is at -2, 0. Well, that makes sense because it has to be 1 down from my vertex because my p-value is -1. And my directrix is at y equals 2, which again makes sense because it has to be 1 above my vertex. So you can always use the graph to make sure that the focus and the directrix you found is correct. If you have any questions, let me know.